Badlands, running to Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
When it comes to your health and well-being, Easy RX Drug has your back. Easy RX Drug has a huge selection of generic medications covering everything from pain relief to chronic conditions, all at unbelievable prices. And here's the best part, folks. Quality assurance is their middle name. Easy RX Drug products are sourced from reputable manufacturers, ensuring top-notch quality and effectiveness every single time. At Easy RX Drugs, generic doesn't mean compromising on quality. You can save big, up to 80% compared to those pricey brand name medications. Look for specific medications. We've got you covered. Badlands, your health is your wealth. It's time to take control and start your journey to wellness with Easy RX Drug. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/Easy RX Drug to take the first step toward healthier, wealthier you. Use promo code Badlands10 for 10% off when you spend $299 or more. That's badlandsmedia.tv/EZRX. Promo code Badlands10.
Sounds easy.
Very easy. Right. So welcome everybody to the show. It's the last show of 2023, and up for the show today we have who can afford kids these days? A fair question if you ask me. Well, we're going to get into it, and I'll show you and become a commentary on why they've literally used our family as a weapon against freedom and prosperity. We have another article coming out of Armstrong Economics. CBDC, the end of all freedom. Can you see the theme here? And we got Ryan. What you got up for us?
We got legislation to prohibit presidents from departing from NATO was approved by Congress. We'll talk about why that might not be as bad as it sounds. Suspicious Israeli stock market activity suggests that a possible foreknowledge of the conflict was, some people might have known about it over in Israel, some nefarious actors. And then we have the age of deepfake news is finally here.
Fascinating articles. Welcome to the show, everybody. We are Vigilant News. I'm Justin. This is Ryan. We're the hosts of Vigilant News and founders. Don't forget to check out vigilant.news. That's vigilant.news. That is the website where Ryan's been kicking ass, posting a lot of breaking news articles, a lot of awesome articles. Want to tell them a little bit about it?
It's just another news site for you to add to your repertoire. We try to get out anywhere from 2 to 3 articles a day. Some days we don't get any out, but it's stuff that's relevant to the stuff we cover on our show, Badlands kind of, topics, things we talk about here, technocracy, a lot of stuff regarding Congress lately and how much they're failing, and all kinds of topics that we typically cover on our show. So keep an eye out there. If you're the kind of person who likes to visit actual publications on the internet, definitely save that one.
Yeah, really appreciate all your viewing and sharing support there too. All right, so we got an action-packed show here. Let's go ahead and we'll just jump right into our rapids.
Anything we want to say about the previous year?
Maybe like an end of a spontaneous end of year recap here. You got anything off mine?
Let's see. Well, what was your favorite part of 2023?
Watching Elon Musk tell everybody to go fuck themselves in the New York Times symposium. That was pretty fun. Let's see. I mean, there was a lot of good things. I'm having a hard time with some of the top 10 right at this moment, but it seems like from a Trumpian perspective, it seems like Trump's really kind of ramping it up. And was it you who were telling me yesterday that him and his lawyer, that lady there, are going to just totally kick ass in next year or something like that?
That was probably Paul.
That was Paul. Okay.
Yeah. I haven't really been following the cases. I think Just Human does a great job of that. So there's really no need for me to. So
right. Yeah.
That's kind of my stance anyway. There's so many other stories to cover that I kind of I'll let those guys handle it. They have a better grasp of all those things anyway.
Yep. I guess on a personal note, I will say we've been working really hard on this new charity. You can go to charleswhitfield.org. That's the charity website. It's called the Charles Whitfield Charity for Healing the Child Within. And we're going to be doing some really powerful things on there. And I was happy to present at Clay Clark's recent event in Tulare, California. And it went off really well. And he put me in between two really all the speakers in the morning were pretty powerful, and I was honored to be amongst such people. So, I feel like a lot of work happened this past year, a lot more work to come. No doubt next year is going to be unprecedented. And I think Trump means it when he says the best is yet to come. So there we have it.
Also, the worst is probably yet to come.
Yeah, that's
in that
true.
regard. I think my favorite moments were the big, long-awaited counteroffensive from Ukraine that totally flopped. That was great.
Wasn't that the Ghost of Kiev leading that? The air assault?
No, the Ghost of Kiev was pronounced dead in like 2022, I think.
Yeah, right now.
Even though they were never real.
Exactly.
But so there's that. I really like that we got to get involved in another foreign war. That's pretty cool. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff going on, but I'm sure we're all gonna completely forget about 2023 with the fun and games we got slated for 2024.
Oh yeah, no doubt. All right, so let's see. Let me find yours. I believe I'm ready.
Yes, sir. Let's start with this one. School district goes full Grinch with order banning Christmas decorations.
Oh, really?
And I'm pretty sure just mention of Christmas at all is kind of banned too.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're actually like censoring it like they would a swear word.
Wow. Well, you know who was into Christmas? Hitler.
Yeah, that's true. So obviously it needs to go, right?
Yeah.
Was Hitler into Christmas?
I don't know. I was just watching. I'm sure he was, but the Tucker and Glenn Greenwald, and apparently Tucker was like lambasted because he was talking about the appreciation of beauty and how it reminds you of truth and how important that is in like society, which I totally agree with. And he's way more right than maybe he even knows. But then apparently he got a whole bunch of articles written about him because you know who else liked beauty? The Nazis and Hitler. That's who. And so clearly, the Illuminati confirmed, or in this case, Nazi confirmed when it comes to Tucker. But anyway.
Also, don't forget that he's a Russian agent.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. That gets around.
So there's that. Just more trying to change culture and society, pitting one generation against another. Here's one that we talked about in the house earlier. Identify as 550 pounds. Southwest Airlines gives free extra seats to customer of size.
No, really?
Yeah. So Justin's wife, Maddie, was telling us this clip. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't watch the clip. It's probably not short, but
go ahead. What were you about to say?
Basically, they passed. What was it? Southwest?
Yeah.
They passed some sort of measure where they now, if you're big enough that you take up part of the seat next to you, that person has to get off the flight. Not you, the person taking up the seat base, but the person who paid for a ticket and should have been there if you weren't such a fat ass. They lose their ticket. So it's just, I'm sure their ESG score went up a little bit, and that's all that really matters.
Not to mention their belt size. But, well, as a funny thing to add to that, I was flying this past weekend to go do this event in California, and I think I got appendicitis. I was in a lot of pain, and the day that I was in the most pain was on Thursday, and I happened to be sitting next to two very well-fed women. One of them was so well-fed that she couldn't put the chair down, or the arm bar down, or whatever it's called, and she took up like a quarter of my seat, like a third of my seat. So maybe she just didn't get the memo that she could have just kicked me off the plane entirely. That would have been cool.
Were you flying Southwest?
No, I was flying American, but yeah, so. Little jab, but here it is. So, all right, what we got?
Next, we got Louisiana woman, her 3 husbands, and uncle arrested for heinous crimes linked to witchcraft, Satanism, and Vikingism, or Odinism, as it's often referred to.
All right,
which is interesting. It's like, is this like the SRA highly organized form of Satanism, or is this more like trailer park Satanism, or is it why not both?
Wow, no kidding. Did they say what they were doing? What was going on? I haven't seen this yet.
No, I mean, I didn't. I don't know all the details.
Cool.
Fortunately, so there's that. In case you missed it, Michigan Court of Appeals rules Trump can stay on the 2024 primary ballot. So Adam Schiff was really gunning for that tactic to work, getting him pulled off the ballots. I mean, they have obviously a multi-pronged approach for trying to get Trump to not win the presidency in 2024. One of them being removing him from the ballots in light of his alleged crimes and the indictments that were trumped up against him. So that doesn't appear to be working, at least in Michigan. I know it didn't work in Colorado. So it seems that strategy is failing. This one's great. Visualizing $97 trillion of global debt in 2023. It's got an image. If you scroll down here, it's remarkable.
Is this one here?
Mm-hmm.
let me actually open it in another tab so it shows up right.
Yeah. It's worth pulling up and looking at.
Okay, here we go. So we got a world of debt, percentage of world debt. Okay, so what?
This is just like the debt per country and what it
Wow.
looks like. Who's got the biggest? Obviously, it's the United States because we are the number one funder of NATO. We send money to any country that we want to support a regime change in or them going to war with another country. Not to mention, we just hemorrhage money, taxpayer dollars out to any little stupid effing thing. So, and then you've got it's interesting because you get to see where the other countries of the world stack up. China being number 2, Japan almost rivaling China, which is interesting. But they do have a huge population in Japan.
Yeah, I mean it's funny too because like the population size is like India is, I think it's the most populous country in the world. I can't remember.
I think China's above India.
Are they? Okay.
Well, I thought that. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah,
they're both 2 of the biggest, most populated countries.
Yeah, but their debt is a lot smaller. So it's also where a lot of our modern slave labor is in these 2 countries. So anyway. All right. So what else we got from this fantastic news publication we got?
All right. Sales of bars of gold at Costco reach 100 million as economic collapse looms. And they actually, I think they sold out the day of, like the day they started, like announced that this would be a thing. Now you can get up to 2 gold bars when the offer is around from 2 separate distributors. One is some company from Switzerland, and I don't know about the other one, but it's something that is indicative of people's trust in the Federal Reserve. Just make sure you don't show G Money this. There you go.
Right, exactly. It's funny, one comment on this, I'm almost dead sure I saw in an article something like the headline of will the big push for gold help bring in CBDCs, something like that. And it's something I hadn't really thought of before, but the push for gold in the past has certainly been a vector for globalist interests and international banking interests. So always got to be careful. All right, here we go. What else?
We got, as a record number of Hill legislators resigned, 2 more House members declare that they will not be seeking re-election. So there's been a decent sized list of people so far. I forget the exact number. But it's an unprecedented kind of number. I think 33. Okay, so far this year, a minimum of 40 members of Congress, 33 House members, and 7 senators have declared their intention to abstain from running for re-election.
Wow.
So it's the highest number in a single month in over a decade, maybe ever. They never really provided another instance where this mass exodus kind of happened. So wonder what that's all about. Maybe some of you guys recall the mass exodus of CEOs and board members of all these big corporations in the lead up to 2020. As all of those indictments were racking up, I wonder if there's a reason for all these people leaving. The way Congress has been operating, I'm not too upset about this because most of Congress is uniparty. All right, so there's that. Next, we have an article from Just the News. Senate resumes talks on Ukraine funding, border security after weekend negotiations. No sign of deal as of the time of this writing. So, Ukraine, I just saw an article today, and I want to say it was either the Federalist or Activist Post saying Ukraine is dead. Like that whole issue is done with, it seems like. They were putting up the argument for it's like the slow death rattle of us funding Ukraine and all that. And they're already setting their eyes on the rebuilding process. So I imagine we'll be seeing some kind of treaty or truce being enacted over there. I don't know what it would look like, but I think the U.S. they don't have any soldiers to keep fighting the war. They had a conscript army and they're running out of people to send into the charnel house. So, So there's no one to fight anymore. And, we've sent as many billions as we probably reasonably can while still making commitments to Israel. So really Ukraine is kind of a done deal. And this is, I'm sure whatever happens here will kind of be indicative of that.
Yeah, certainly seems like it. I mean, has anybody put out an audit of any kind about all the money that we've been sending over there yet? I'm wondering, because boy, that would be good to know.
Well, I've seen reports that a lot of it end up in generals' pockets and their bank accounts. It gets appropriated in other ways by other people. So
Big money grab.
it's probably like it would be a monumental task to try to audit all of that.
Kidding, huh? That's
Right.
why it's so cool for them.
China syndrome. U.S. reductions in coal use are offset by large increases in Asia. Isn't that interesting? Well, good thing we're doing it because China's just increasing their production. So
For some reason, they got a free pass when it comes to the whole green agenda. I'm not sure how that works really, but
yeah,
we're too stupid to know these things.
Well,
That's why we need the globalists.
It's almost as if like this whole green agenda really just benefits China and allows them to become the number one, in everything. Like they're continuing unabated while we all kind of like kneecap ourselves, and maybe that was always the purpose. I don't know.
Oh, it looks like people are trickling in from the interview. Welcome, everybody. This is where the real party's been at the entire time.
Yeah. Leave that snore fest over there. Oh my God. All right. This is an interesting one. Most young Americans say Israel should, quote, be ended and given to Hamas. Jews are oppressors, a poll finds.
Oh, boy.
Interesting. Controversial take, I'd say.
Yeah.
But that's where it's at, and they don't think that for no reason. So,
well, did we mention the thing we did last week? Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? No, we didn't.
It was last week, but Rumble was down, so maybe not a lot of people saw it.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments if you saw our coverage of Christian Zionism, how they're Christians, how they're treated by Zionists, and a little segment we did where we showed some footage of evidence that it's not a mutual love between Christians and Israeli Jews. Not talking about the whole group, just
right.
Like we stated many times in that segment, we're not saying everyone is like that. It's just a substantial amount of people over there hate Christians and believe that they should be killed. So,
not our words, theirs.
Yeah.
All right, what we got?
This is interesting. Poll. This is a Fox poll. 54% of Democrat voters desire Joe Biden replaced as their 2024 nominee.
Wow. It's about time, everybody. Welcome to the party.
It looks like MN Mom says that she missed it. I think a lot of people missed it. Either we can redo it and show it at the end of this episode if we get through everything relatively quick, or we can record a standalone, something like that.
Yeah, that's not
I think it's worth it because you're not going to see a lot of this stuff from the Gateway Pundit, just the news. Insert your favorite conservative media publication because for whatever reason, their reporting is completely one-sided.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is really the stuff that we saw and showed was so glaring and undeniable in what it said that I'd be very hard pressed if anybody saw that and didn't at least raise an eyebrow and be like, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? So anyway, maybe, I don't know if we have a segment cut or whatnot, but that'd be a cool thing to show.
Oh, Allie in the chat says, if you follow Vigilant News on social media, that part has been clipped and is up on today's feed.
Oh, nice. Allie, killing it. All right.
Last, but certainly not least, Tennessee sues BlackRock in first of its kind ESG lawsuit.
No kidding.
That hopefully will set a precedent. We'll see. It's going to take bravery on the part of all these individual states, but it's cool to see Tennessee doing that.
Fantastic. Wow, that's great. All right.
We'll have to stay vigilant and see where that goes.
You know it. All right, so let me get in there with some rapids myself. There we go. So here we got. Make sure you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. Yes, okay. Military faces mutiny of enlisted Gen Zers as TikTok virus spreads. So, there's a lot of reasons to not like TikTok. I'm right up there. The one I think is the more glaringly obvious one is that it's the psychological effect it has on your brain. It's very similar to like crack cocaine or pornography in that you can very easily kind of rewrite pretty critical brain circuits, distort your value system in ways that you're not really all that aware of while you're watching it. So that's my big one.
Well, just imagine if that technology was used to actually teach kids about
Yeah.
important things, philosophy, how to build, basic tasks, how to work on your car, and we became addicted to that. We would have a
That'd
much
probably
better
be much
world.
better. It'd be certainly a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
So this one, it's pretty simple, but basically what the implication here is there was a lot of apparently people in the military posting on TikTok that they are not happy about being in the military. And one thing I wanted to say about this is a kind of nuanced issue. Usually there's a kind of, anytime the military is mentioned, we have to be like, we respect our veterans and the people that fought for us. And I'm going to do that right here because I absolutely believe that. I think if you have the desire to support your country, to fight for your family, to fight for your children, to fight for your communities, and ultimately to fight for your nation and then goodness in the world, that is something to be, people should be revering you for your intention. However, the military is not a beautiful, situation. It's not used in a way to protect people's freedoms anymore, and we have to be honest about that. So what I think we're seeing here is not necessarily a bunch of righteous Zenziers who are like, look at how badly the military is being used. Let's take to social media to talk about it. What they're saying is that they feel like their pay has been a little bit lower, or it's lower than it could be. And what I'm saying is that just because the military has been hijacked by the globalists and has been used in some of the most insidious and destructive con jobs this past 2 centuries, it's still a vital aspect of human life. We need defensive forces. We need people who really care about the law, who really care about justice, who really care about doing the right thing, fighting for those things against the insidious parasites that exist elsewhere in the world who don't. So,
I mean, in my mind, a real America first future where we have achieved all our goals, we would still have a strong military, but it would just be like don't F with us, where you have this border and this strong military. We don't interfere in anyone else's conflicts. We don't need to be the policeman of the world. We don't need to have bases anywhere else in the world. We just have a really, really strong military at home and we keep to ourselves. That would be ideal.
mm-hmm.
Even if we win this whole greater information war, we're still going to need military.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the other thing we'll need is epistemic regress. We got to go back and ask a million questions about everything because there's a whole lot of assumptions. We've been fed BS for years. I mean, William Casey, I don't remember the exact quote, but he's CIA. I think he was the head of the CIA in the 80s under Bush. And he said that we'll know our objective is complete when everything the American people believes is false. Like, it's true.
Seems like their objective is complete, right?
Exactly. So that being said, long intro aside, basically I just want to show you a couple of these pictures. So this is Cons of Being in the Army Part 1. The pay sucks. Here's one, looks like a guy in somewhere in the Middle East or something like that.
You get that cool scarf, though.
Yeah, hey, I mean, come on, what are you complaining about? We got this young lady here. If you see this, this is your sign not to join the military. We have some ladies here. Don't join the army for the pay. Okay. And 3 reasons you may not want to join the military. 5 reasons why you shouldn't join the military. And from what I understand, again, I skimmed through the article, and they're not like saying the things that I think maybe are more present, which is that, hey, the military has been hijacked by a death cult that wants to kill a bunch of people, disrupt nations and economies, kidnap a bunch of children, and then make a big buck doing it, all while fanning the flames of virtue signal here in the at home. All right, let me try to blast through the rest of these. We got Sinister Sights. This is coming from Vigilant Citizen. Great organization. I've been following these guys for years. They put out a lot of good stuff. A lot of stuff about symbolism, things like this. Sinister Sights. Quinta de Regalaria, an occult palace built for Masonic rituals.
But do they have any proof of that? That's all I always want to ask about these things.
You took the words right out of my mouth. So
they might. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they have. But a lot of times there's conjecture that is within the realm of possibility for sure.
Mm-hmm. So it has a bunch of very interesting things. I mean, there's not a whole lot of commentary I was going to say, just that there are various sites. One of the things I was mentioning last week for the Knowledge Base show, which was about the Lucifer Rebellion, which is a series we're going to start here. We started last week. We're going to continue here probably at least for a couple more episodes. Very fascinating. If you want to know kind of the deeper theology of what I think the occult believes, or the dark the death cults, as I like to refer to them. You can check out that series. And last week we were talking about the nature of the occult, and basically just means hidden. So there's a lot of things that are hidden. Now there's the things we traditionally think of as the occult, like Satanism, Luciferianism, black magic, these kind of things, and that's certainly part of it. But there's a long history of aristocracy, so people who got money to throw around, whether they're merchants, whether they're politicians, whether they're priest class, or actual kings and queens and lords and things like this, who've been engaged in these kind of dark occult rituals or occult rituals to try to advance a certain spiritual ideology, all sorts of things. And it's no shock that these types of castles exist if, to Ryan's point, this thing is actually a real occult castle built for a bunch of Masonic rituals. I don't necessarily doubt it necessarily.
Right.
But
it's just, how do they know that? Like what?
Right.
Like what is the news that they are bringing to us that was previously unknown that proves that?
Sure, that's the question. As far as I know, there isn't any rock solid smoking gun case. We just have a bunch of bizarre things in here. Mm-hmm. There's some accounts, so like rumors and things like that. And these places have been frequented by people who have been associated with occultism, like Aleister Crowley. Things like this. A portion of the movie The Night Gate, if you've ever seen it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, was apparently filmed in this place. I remember that from the movie, actually. The movie was a trip. I remember watching it back when I didn't know jack all about anything.
It's a trippy flick.
Yeah, and really strange. And then I have it on my bucket list to watch again because I love decoding movie symbolism.
I'd like to watch that again, too.
Yeah, we should. And, man, I think there's a lot in there because they love to reveal their agenda in secret and in occult ways. All right, here we go. Neighborhoods with strong families, two-parent households have safer streets, says study. Absolutely. There's a reason why they don't want nuclear families. But this is something I said over the weekend. And anytime I say this, people are like, wait a minute, what? But nuclear families is already something that these guys wanted. They wanted people to abandon their deep inset communities and their extended families because when you have those things in place and things actually work right, they're basically immune to propaganda. And on top of that, you raise kids that don't have a whole lot of behavioral issues. I mean, they're not perfect by any means. They certainly can be places where all sorts of weird activity, cultish type activity, if you want to use that term, happens. But as I mentioned 2 weeks ago on the show with Jordan, Knowledge Base, there's really only a handful of communities that have been immune to all the propaganda, the trillion-dollar mega machine of propaganda that has been weaponized against humanity itself. And it's these entrenched communities where at the center you usually have some religious ideology like the Quakers or the Mennonites, and then you have a whole community built around doing something and serving some value system. And the extended families there, everybody is in some form supporting each other. Again, that's they're not perfect by any means, but it's very difficult to propagandize those people. And to this day, they remain some of the most intact communities, and they have been for hundreds of years. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Real quick, let us know if the thumbs up button's working for you guys. We're getting reports that it might not be working for some people. So
we'll need everybody to test it for us. So please let us know. Yeah. All right, here we got upcoming movie. I legitimately laughed out loud when I saw this headline. Upcoming movie.
Is it the Negroes?
Yeah. The American Society of Magical Negroes.
Which had so much potential, but it's just going to be another woke racist movie.
Oh my! Is this like I didn't see anything about the headline? Is this like an actual comic book or anything? Do you know of or?
Not that I know of, but that title, like, it's a movie that I want. Like, I love the title, and I know it's just going to be trash. It's going to be complete garbage.
Oh man, I had a kind of laughing fit when I heard it. I just kept remembering that there's a few spoof videos of the Lord of the Rings where it's like
lot of damn rings.
Yeah, it's like
Lottie,
a rap
lottie.
And then the ones where it's like movie posters where it's like actors that are clearly white or people, historical figures that are clearly white or non-black are like turned into black. I can't remember that. A few of them offhand, but anyway, that is just hilarious. But the crazy part, and all kidding aside, apparently the show, according to this headline, is going to depict white people as monster or most dangerous animals on the planet. And so, they're not hiding the propagandization of non-whites against whites. This is an agenda they've got going on for a very long time, and they're really pushing for it now. We got Texas Board of Education votes to keep sexually explicit books out of school libraries. Well, there's a little bit of a victory there. But of course, do not take these small victories as, well, we can sit down because the tide has turned here, by any means. I mean, if we've learned anything by studying the death cult over the past, number of years here, is that their timelines are, 20, 30, 50, 40, 100 years. Like, they'll wait till you're dead and all of your ideas are dead and buried with you. Then they'll start to shame you and in the public eye, and then they'll continue their agenda anyway. So, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, as our slogan says. Political persecution. Arizona State Rep Alex Colden sentenced to 18 months probation by Arizona bar for representing conservatives and filing election lawsuits. I mean, this is ridiculous, guys. So a guy who has legitimate concerns for the Arizona election and has legitimate grievances and evidence to back it up is being politically prosecuted with lawfare. This is like grab your pitchforks kind of level, like insanity. Like, at some point, we have to realize that the whole system is designed to work against us and do some type of collective action. Now, when I say grab your pitchforks, I don't literally mean let's become a mob and try to kill people. What I'm saying is that we, the people, have to take back our rights in substance by getting our elected officials out of office, by using the power of recall, by going in and, if whatever elected officials do exist, the whole reason they're there is to represent us. And if they're not there to represent us, then we make it so impossible for them to do their job that they can't do anything, and then we can go in and do all sorts of amazing things. There's all sorts of lawful tools that we have available to us to move the ball in the right direction. And I think it's time we all start doing that. Ultimate update. Biden shocked as a vehicle rams into parked car in his motorcade. Secret Service reacts, weapons drawn near Delaware campaign HQ. This might not be anything, but I just thought it was interesting because, we've heard the idea that Biden might mysteriously die or something like that has been floated around for at least a little while now. And my thought that I had was, again, I'm not saying this event was manufactured, but it could certainly be used as a way to spark a conversation so that the deep state can do some media campaigning to see, well, what is the best way to get rid of this guy so they can bring in whoever they really want to come in. In case you I already got that one. In case you missed it, this one is good. We got Vivek. I know a lot of people think Vivek is just a globalist stooge. I personally do not think that, but I understand that that's the opinion. And I've seen the evidence, which is, in my opinion, just because somebody goes to somewhere to get a scholarship doesn't mean they're a bought and paid for member of the cabal. But
it's definitely worth keeping in mind.
Absolutely,
but,
absolutely.
We got to judge people by where they're at today.
Yeah. And in this case, I think he's been one of the most apropos and decisive speaker outers, if there's a better way to say it, but people talking out against the deep state. And he did it again here. So.
Yeah, it's hard to tell if he really thinks he can beat Trump. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's his goal or if this is a perfect opportunity to put himself on the map. I think that's more what his angle is here. Unless he really thinks he's going to beat Trump, which is just ridiculous. There's no need to. So
right, exactly. And to your point, Sammy 60s, he's saying the right words. And that, some people might say, well, yeah, he's just saying what people want to hear. And yes, that might be the case. But this is one thing I like to remind people and myself of, is that we do not live in a world where you can be reasonable and argue things reasonably and actually have that mean anything anymore. We live in a world of massive propaganda wars and groupthink. And that means, and this is, I think, why Trump does the things he does, because I think he's very aware of this. And he's one of the best propagandizers in history. And when you live on a planet, when you cannot trust your fellow man to use their discernment to divine the truth and make good decisions in concert and trust with everybody else, just like the founding fathers did 250 years ago, then you have to deal with the beast that you happen to be living with. And the beast we happen to be living with is a bunch of people who are overworked, underpaid, stressed. They have all of the things, every aspect of their lives is being weaponized against them, including their own children, including their wives, including their husbands. And we need somebody to rally the troops out of their chaotic, discoordinate state and get them pointed in the right direction. I think Trump is doing it. I think a lot of people are doing it. And whether or not, again, he's paid for by the deep state or not, he's saying the words that are pointing people in a certain direction, and that has some value. All right, so all the caveats aside, let's listen to this clip. Not too.
And the smug, condescending way.
Oh, boy, let me frame this real quick. So this is, who is this yokel? Van Jones, that's it. So Van Jones melts down over Vivek talking about great replacement theory. And if you're not remember, or if you're not sure what he's talking about, Vivek, I believe it was the last debate, kind of went off and said that he's the only one who's going to tell the truth on stage. And the truth is that there is a campaign by socialists and by globalists to replace white people and do all sorts of things like this. Of course, when you say that, the left, this media goes nuts and says there's no such thing as the replacement theory. That's a big conspiracy theory. But anyone who has a lick of sense can do a Google search online and see that the amount of migrants that have invaded Europe over the past 10 years has exploded. The government is absolutely favoring that side of, or those people over their own citizens. There's countless stories of girls being raped, stores being sacked, gang mobs of young military-age men running around doing all sorts of crazy shit. And instead of the police doing what they should be doing, which is protecting the citizens' rights, they side with the immigrants and then they prosecute the other people, just like the people that were defending themselves in Chicago a couple years ago. I can't remember their name, but.
And the thing is that they're not. Has nothing to do with citizens like this man. He knows this is a talking point, and he thinks that the people are really racist, and he's just doing what he thinks he has to. It's not like this affects him in any way. This is a man who is, I'm pretty sure, a citizen of the United States. Why he's fighting so hard is literally just because the tribalist us versus them mindset. I belong to this crowd, so my stance on this issue is this, and I will die on this hill because I'm an idiot.
Basically, yeah. I mean, he's a total moron, and he just believes whatever he's told, which is totally possible because a lot of these people that get into middle manager positions are not that bright, and there's a reason why the cabal chooses not bright people who also have damaged inner childs, and when they get a lick of fame, think that they rule the world. Or he's just another con man like a bunch of other people out there just spouting lies, knowing exactly what he's talking about. So, that being said, let's take a listen to this clip, and then we'll listen to Vivek's reaction.
And the smug, condescending way that he just spews this poison out is very, very dangerous because he won't stop Trump, but he's going to outlive Trump by about 50 years. And you're watching the rise of an American demagogue that is a very, very despicable person. Yeah. And I was shaking listening to him talk because a lot of people don't know that is one step away from Nazi propaganda coming out of his mouth.
Yeah, but the good thing, Van, you could
blow it out your
head. Oh my God, I know. It's just whew, okay. You know what would be great? This might actually be a really good business idea. We should get a bunch of life-size cardboard cutouts of the most idiotic people on earth that spout this garbage, and then we'll have a big festival where we get awesome guns and we just blow those things out of the water. I think that'd be a lot of fun. All right, so this is Vivek talking direct. We're responding to Van Jones. Here we go.
We demand a government that tells us the truth again in this country. That's what we require. We can handle the truth. That's what it means to be a citizen of this country. So I say that on that last debate stage to a bunch of Republicans that are shaking in their boots. These are the things you're not supposed to say in the Republican Party even today. And then you get the mainstream media. You got this character Van Jones on CNN afterwards saying, this is the rise of an American demagogue who's going to live 50 years longer than Trump. This is dangerous. I am shaking. That's what he says. Just shut the fuck up. At a certain point,
hello.
Just shut the fuck up.
What? Oh, it's a turning point.
Yeah.
Van Jones at CNN.
Is it?
I think so. Yeah, it's a turning point. Actually, some kind of.
We're done with it.
I don't know if that's just their coverage of it. Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they do that branding right there. Okay, so there you go. Now, when I saw this, admittedly, one of the first things that came to mind is well, is it because Elon Musk is telling people to fuck off that, he's jumping on the bandwagon? Well, maybe he is. I don't know.
Well, it's a trend that I don't necessarily mind.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. So it's hey, that's totally cool. If we got to tell a bunch of people that arguably deserve to be told to F off, and that rallies the troops, that's fine with me.
I mean, in my old age, I'm not a huge fan of potty mouths, but
right.
The symbol of giving the middle finger to all of these things that we used to just have to accept, is kind of something that I'd like to see more.
Exactly. Yeah. So, all right, there we go. And thank you, my beautiful wife, for telling me to chill out. Sometimes I get a little bit too passionate out there, so if I do, I appreciate the chill out warning here. President Trump, there's never been a concession. You do know that, right? I don't know. I had a hard time reading that for a second. Anyway, so here we go. Let's just listen to him say this. Is pretty quick.
And they say we lost.
Short.
But there notes and they say we lost. But there never has been, there never has been a concession. You do know that, right? You do know.
So, I don't think he ever conceded. I don't think anyone really believes he conceded, but the fact that he's saying this and he's saying it very openly and it's clearly having a positive effect is a good sign, because who never conceded. What is it? That person who shall not be named didn't concede either. The Wicked Witch of the West and Hillary Clinton.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not really. She said she conceded, but then she proceeded to undermine everything Trump did for 4 years and continues to this day. All right, so here we got head of the DeSantis super PAC abruptly resigns. And boy, DeSantis looks surprised. Of course, that's not his real reaction, but there you go. So I don't know if he, I think the last time I heard poll numbers or his funding rates, they were not good. Vivek was, I believe, the top of the front runners for the vice presidency, so to speak.
Really?
Yeah, well, I'm joking. I'm saying that because they're not really running for president because they have no chance.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But they're running for the vice presidency. So.
Well, in the donor's mind, who need anybody but Trump to win,
right.
They're just like, who can I just insert my billions into, or hundreds of thousands, whatever.
Exactly. And then here we have last article from iRapids. Pfizer established as leading oncology company after $43 billion purchase. Well, that's a little unsettling, but it seems like Pfizer's not going to be going away if the globalists have anything to do with it. They might be, the leading company not finding cures for cancer and shoving poisons down your throat in the name of curing cancer. So that is the latest news from here on the Rapids. We're going to have some more. We will have some features here, but before we get to those features, let's hear from one of our lovely and wonderful sponsors. And if you guys haven't seen it, just like the article we were sharing earlier said, Costco is selling gold. And I don't think that's an accident or a sign that nothing serious is going on, because there is something serious going on, as one of our sponsors, Goldco, has to say. If you watch our show, you know how I feel about our government and the financial system. So it's no secret I'm a believer in diversifying your money with precious metals like gold and silver. But when it comes to buying precious metals, you need the right company in your corner. That's why we've partnered with the top-rated precious metals company, Goldco. Goldco has helped people like you and me place over $1 billion in gold and silver, and have earned their reputation through honesty, professionalism, and thousands of 5-star reviews. With a Better Business Bureau rating of A+, their track record speaks for itself. For those with retirement accounts, they're offering Vigilant News supporters $10,000 in free silver when opening up a qualified IRA. This is your opportunity to protect yourself from the out-of-control corrupt government. Go to badlandsgold.com to learn how you could get started and request your free gold IRA kit. That's badlandsgold.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for our wonderful sponsors. Now let's go ahead and move over to some really good articles, I think, today. What you got for us, Ryan?
Well, we'll start with this one by way of Vigilant News. The intrepid reporters over at Vigilant News typed this up. Legislation to prohibit presidents from departing from NATO was approved by Congress. So, I mean, trust me, it sounds worse than it is. They made it, I guess, impossible for Trump, assuming he wins. This is indicative of the fact that they believe that he has a pretty good chance of getting in, because if it just was any other NATO or uniparty stooge, they wouldn't have to take these measures. So that's a good sign. So I guess they made it impossible for him, but it's not necessarily as bad as it sounds. I'll explain why I think that after we read the article. So, I actually should just pull up the tab so I can read the whole damn thing. It's a short piece, so. An amendment that would prevent any future president from withdrawing the United States from NATO has been inserted into the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act, which has already received approval from both the House and Senate. Under the leadership of Senators Marco Rubio, Republican, and Tim Kaine, Democrat, the legislation was a bipartisan endeavor that would prevent the president from withdrawing from NATO without either Senate approval or an act of Congress. According to The Hill, Kaine said the legislation, quote, reaffirms U.S. support for this crucial alliance that is foundational for our national security.
Oh my God.
It also sends a strong message to authoritarians around the world that the free world remains united. Okay. Kaine, Rubio, and other congressional conservatives need not be concerned about the possibility of President Biden attempting to withdraw from NATO, obviously, given his unwavering support for the alliance and his consistent declaration that the United States' commitment to NATO is sacred. The unspoken part of this bill is the likelihood that Donald Trump, Biden's only real threat, would pull out of the alliance, especially if its global proxy war with BRICS were to reach a major crescendo during the hypothetical second Trump term. Trump has been critical of the alliance and has urged other members to increase their military spending to reduce the burdens on the United States, which seems fair, right? Mm-hmm. Remember, NATO is the vehicle empowered by Bush-era neocons to override the UN Security Council. When the U.S. sets its sights on a foreign conflict or wants to stage a regime change, it would first have to pass the UN Security Council, where countries like France or Germany and others would typically vote against U.S. involvement. They did this with Iraq. That's why it took September 11th for us to finally go out there and do it. And the only reason that even worked was because in the post 9/11 era, NATO was used, it was strengthened, and there was an avenue created to completely bypass the Security Council. So, needless to say, the powers that be in the West, especially the military-industrial complex, do not want us to leave NATO. Now, so, okay, Trump can't pull out. That's not good, right? Well, okay, I'll wait on that one. One of the worst parts about the arrangement about NATO is that we are the primary funders. This was brought to many people's attention during the Trump presidency. He made it very clear. There was a couple speeches he gave. He let everyone know how much the U.S. is putting into NATO versus all the other member countries. And now, while this move, this banning, removal of the president's ability to withdraw from NATO without Congress and the Senate, it seems like a setback, but at least in my mind, there's nothing stopping Donald Trump, should he win in 2024, from reducing U.S. funding to NATO to, say, $1 annually. Okay, you can't pull out, but what if you just put, almost no money into it? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's either going to render NATO obsolete, or it's going to be forcing all of these other countries to put in the money to it. Either way, America first is not compatible with NATO, in my mind. I mean, it's fine to have allies, but that's not really what the purpose of this is. I mean, that's the front-facing purpose, but it's more nefarious beneath that. It's a neocon's wet dream, essentially. And given how much war is in the headlines these days and where it's projected to go from here, it doesn't seem like the situation in Gaza is just going to fizzle out. It's going to expand into a full-on war against the Islamic State in all Muslim countries. Possibly. It looks like that's where the trajectory is going. So NATO is going to be a huge part of that. And, of course, you got BRICS, which is really all conflicts boil down to a BRICS versus NATO kind of thing. Even everything that we're witnessing here. So something for us to keep our peepers vigilant regarding, but I don't think it's as bad. I think there are things that Trump can do to make it so it's not like some catastrophic thing. I think there are measures that can be taken, creative steps that can make it kind of, I don't know, like I said, dropping NATO funding down to like $1 a year, it would be like it's like, okay, we're stuck in this, we're stuck with NATO, but we're not really, strengthening it. We're not using it. It's not being used in the way that it was meant to be used.
Yeah, when I saw this article, I had, was like, oh boy, they're really just going nonstop. And my initial thought was that they're going to prevent a president from getting out of NATO because they don't want they don't want NATO and its issues with respect to wars that they start up to have their cupboard pulled out from under them if somebody gets in there. I hadn't considered the point you just made, but I just want to show you Martin Armstrong. Actually, I'll just save it for the next article because we're going to cover that later down the line. But he has a really interesting take on the whole NATO situation that I'll let him speak to. And basically his thought, I'll give you a little teaser on it, is that the reason they're doing this with NATO is because they don't want Trump to get in there and for them to start a big war, and then Trump can't pull them out of the war. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I feel like, obviously, let me put it this way. There's so much fraud and manipulation that have gone through in politics that fraud has no statute of limitations. So if he wanted to, and he had enough political clout to do it, and people really knew how the rights worked, we could upend every piece of legislation that has come through in the past 250 years that is based in BS and does not serve the people's interests or the interests of what the country was started for in the first place. So, a piece of paper is not going to stop us. And somebody who studies law, I can tell you this: every contract, whether it's one you write and sign your name on in blood, or it's one that you just made with a handshake, it can't be renegotiated. Because there's this part of a contract called the meeting of the minds. When the meeting of the mind says, in the negotiation portion of the contract, it says that people have to be on the same page. And that means that if the original basis for why you wanted to start a contract changed because your life circumstance changed, now you have the right to renegotiate that. And the people you engage in contracts with should want you to renegotiate, because that's the whole point. God gave us the amazing and incredible power of contracts to create harmony and pursue excellence and defend our freedoms and all these kind of wonderful things. And so when that isn't happening anymore, it's not like we're just shackled to the agreements we make or shackled to the agreements our parents made. But that's what the cabal wants you to think, because they're all about slavery and they're all about smiting, the true God, so to speak. So, all right. So let's move over to our next article here. We got this one. Having kids. Who can afford kids these days? I tell you. Every time I read the headline, I think of like Rodney Dangerfield. Like, who can afford kids these days? So here we go. It's a pretty awesome article. I'm going to try to get through some of the bigger points and use it to tell you this before I even get onto the article. These guys are very, very good at creating divide and conquer. It might be one of the things they're the best at. They create it within our bodies. They weaponize the food we eat, the clothes we wear, even the technology we use to create autoimmune diseases, so that now literally we have a war inside our own bodies. That's what autoimmune disease is. That's what diabetes is. That's what IBS is. That's what MS is. That's what fibromyalgia is. They're all wars within your body created by the globalists. Another thing that they do is they weaponize our own families against us. And part of the, I just gave this talk on adverse childhood experiences. What an adverse childhood experience is a situation where a parent, often 99.99% of the time, I can tell you right now, most parents do not want to hurt their children. Most parents believe they're doing a good thing. But because of our culture and because they were never taught how to be a parent properly, they end up hurting their children and giving them adverse childhood experiences. And then those children who have ACEs, and you only need one, can have autoimmune diseases. And so what we're seeing now is just another variant of this war against humanity, which is we're going to make having kids so hard that nobody wants to have them anymore. And we're living in that world. Has anybody heard of DINKS? DINKS? What is it? Double income, no kids? Paul Joseph Watson did a video on it. Tim was talking about it a couple of weeks ago. I'd never heard of it until Tim was talking about it, Tim Poole. And so I was looking it up, and then I saw the Paul Joseph Watson video. And they are basically, it's two people who make a really good income, not having kids and loving it, and just reveling in being consumers and going out and spending all their money. So that's kind of what this article gets into, to summarize some of the portions. we got two people, this a couple in New York City. One of them worked for the Wall Street Journal, who think they've made it. They're in New York. They work for the Wall Street Journal. They have pretty good jobs, but as they go to have children, apparently it becomes increasingly difficult to do everything. And now they are living paycheck to paycheck. You know, one thing he talks about is how his parents. As a matter of fact, I'll just skip to this section. So the author writes this: "This week, I've been thinking back on the world my parents lived in circa 1958. They got married and immediately got there in their car and drove to Northern California. Why my father had finished his graduate degree in history and decided to go to seminary where he planned to study music. His ambition was to become the director of music at a church. While he was in school, they had one child, my brother, and then when my father got his first appointment, they had me. My mother did not work. Somehow, and this still seems inconceivable to me today, the very idea that a family of four could support itself in California on the salary of a beginning church music director was mind-boggling to him. And yet, they were not poor." So this is in the early 60s, late 50s. He's describing a world where all it took was one person, the man, in most cases, getting a job, didn't have to be all an amazing job, and they had plenty of money to go around. But now, flash to the 80s. That's when my parents were having me, and it was pretty tight. My father worked pretty decent jobs, and it's not like we were poor by any means, but there was enough of an issue where we didn't have like a ton of money. And now, certainly, that has gone, absolutely insane with the amount of money it takes. That's one of the reasons why I'm so gung-ho about communities, not just because it's the best place to raise kids. It's also because the cost of raising a child becomes increasingly lowered when you actually have people working together in trust to create a good life for everybody. So let's see. Where was that? There was a part I was going to skip to. You need two incomes to pay the bills, and if you're lucky. Chances are that one of two will need an additional part-time job, which is why multiple job holders are higher and higher than ever before. That's right. A lot of people, especially people who don't have like these amazing working for globalist jobs, in my opinion, are working their ass off just to make ends meet. And to do what? So like, what do most people spend their money on, and no shame against them. I'm not saying that they're bad people. What I'm saying is that the other end of it, we have these crazy carrots dangled in front of our face about what money we need to spend on kids and video games and movies and cell phones and all this stuff for what? So they can get propagandized easier by the globalists and big tech. So that, it's a whole other conversation, but that's another aspect of our war against humanity and war against children. And then you have the desire to do homeschooling, which is great, but homeschooling is a whole beast unto itself. And unless you have time to do that, it's really difficult to maintain the amount of energy and effort it takes to have that homeschooling situation. And then there's the nanny component. So if you're going to do homeschooling, or if you're going to work in the job, you got to have daycare. It costs money to do daycare. Or if you're going to do a nanny, it costs money to do nannies because, daycares aren't necessarily that great. So across the board, it's just becoming increasingly more challenging for parents to raise children. And it's by design. This isn't an accident. They wanted to make it hard. They want the pressure to be so hard from all sides that whenever that carrot comes dangling in front of your face, you just reach for it. And then there's a massive one that's about to be dangled in front of our faces with respect to this great reset, which will be coming soon here. So
yeah, something to look forward to.
All right. So what else we got on the docket?
I might end up axing my third feature, but we can do this one still at least. The headline is "Suspicious Israeli Stock Market Activity Suggests Possible Foreknowledge of Conflict." And I also published a version of this on the Post-Liberal, my Substack, that some of you might be familiar with. But, there's a lot of parallels between October 7th and 9/11 that are starting to come to light. So in addition to this, there's been a litany of suspicious factoids surrounding Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. That is what Hamas carried out against the most fortified border in the planet, potentially. Those were the October 7th attacks on Israel by Hamas militants. Egypt warned a week earlier that these attacks were going to happen, and yet Israel left itself completely vulnerable in a time when maybe it shouldn't have been. It's almost as if some element in the country and abroad wanted this to occur, a la 9/11. So that's not to say that Israel as a whole is in on some kind of inside job, but there's certainly compelling evidence that somebody seems to have had foreknowledge of the attack. So I put this article together this morning using data from a recent study, a Western study. The headline is "Suspicious Israeli Stock Market Activity Suggests Possible Foreknowledge of Conflict." I'm just going to read portions of it. I'll try to skip the less important bits of it as we go. So the results of a recent academic study, and that study is linked here if you guys care to look into it yourself, are startling and controversial to say the least. Precarious Israeli stock market activity observed in the days leading up to Operation Al-Aqsa Flood on October 7th suggests that a specific nameless entity possessed knowledge of the impending assault and exploited the ensuing hysteria for personal gain. People wouldn't do that, right?
No, never.
The paper, authored by Robert J. Jackson Jr. and Joshua Mitz of New York University School of Law, concludes that unidentified individuals were cognizant of the impending operation and intended to illicitly profit, as evidenced by, quote, a significant spike in short-term selling of listed Israeli companies. By short selling or shorting, investors essentially wager that a particular stock will underperform and then profit if their prediction is accurate. Contrary to conventional trading, just as like a kind of like refresher, shorting is an exceedingly uncommon practice, and justifiably so. Numerous investment advisors caution against the practice under all circumstances, whether or not it's because it's truly a more dangerous way to play the stocks, or if it's something they want to do themselves. It's hard to.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
As breaches of projected poor performance can result in enormous losses. Remarkably, the researchers discovered that the volume of short selling on Israeli companies in the days leading up to October 7, quote, far exceeded short selling that occurred during numerous other periods of crises, including the recession following the financial crisis, the 2014 Israel-Gaza war, and the COVID-19 pandemic. And there's plenty of that going on prior to COVID, and this is overshadowed even that. Now, Israeli authorities are alleging they're going to investigate these allegations. As per Reuters, research by law professors Robert Jackson Jr. of New York University and Joshua Mitz of Columbia found significant short selling of shares leading up to the attacks, which triggered a war nearly 2 months old. Days before the attacks, traders appeared to anticipate the events to come. They wrote, citing short interest in blah, 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 blah. I thought that in this it was going to mention the investigation, but I think they're just saying there's going to be an investigation. There's no proof that an investigation is actually happening.
I think it's the last line right here.
Yeah, I was about to read that. And just before the attack, short selling of Israeli securities on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, or TASE, I think they call it, increased dramatically, they wrote in their 66-page report. So TASE subsequently directed Reuters to the Israel Securities Authority, which issued the following statement, quote, the matter is known to the authority and is under investigation by all relevant parties, which is just kind of like a default, oh yeah, we're looking into it kind of message. Now, that might not be their disposition. Maybe they are seriously looking into it. I just, I'm a little bit of a cynic when it comes to things like this. They wrote that Leumi TA, the largest bank in Israel, generated profits of 3.2 billion shekels, which equates to $862 million, from the additional short selling of 4.43 million new shares sold short between September 14th and October 5th. Quote, I mean, that's something worth considering. It'd be like if JP Morgan made out like a bandit after, another terrorist attack in the United States. Although we see no aggregate increase in shorting on Israeli companies on U.S. exchanges, we do identify a sharp and unusual increase just before the attack in trading in risky short-dated options on those companies expiring just after the attacks, they said. Quote, this is from the study. Quote, our findings suggest that traders informed about the coming attacks profited from these tragic events. And consistent with prior literature, we show that trading of this kind occurs in gaps in U.S. and international enforcement of legal prohibitions on informed trading. The academics concluded, quote, our evidence is consistent with informed traders anticipating and profiting from the Hamas attacks. Aside from concerns regarding the paper's potential to skew profit totals, I think there was a couple errors found in the report that, they're trying to say, the whole thing should be thrown out. But still, this finding is exceedingly persuasive. A multitude of data sets examined extensively demonstrate that there was, in fact, a significant spike in short selling immediately preceding Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, and one that was extremely dubious, to say the least. So prior to the attack, the shorting of dozens of Israeli companies listed in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange significantly increased from September 14th to October 5th, 2 days before the attack. 4.43 million new shares were shorted on a single company. Additionally, just prior to the attacks, there was an abnormal and sudden increase in U.S. exchanges in the volume of extremely risky short-dated options placed on Israeli equities. These options expired almost immediately after the attack began. And here is one of the graphs from the study itself. In a similar vein, that's not the only bit of compelling evidence. In a similar vein, the shorting of the MSCI Israel Exchange Traded Fund, ETF, which is a passive investment vehicle that mirrors the overall performance of the Israeli Stock Exchange, quote, suddenly and significantly spiked on October 2nd in the 3,570 trading days preceding October 7th. This was the 30th highest daily shorting volume ever witnessed by the ETF. So that means in more than 10 years. And it just happens to happen right before this attack. It's just it's more likely than not likely that hints at someone had foreknowledge, I would say. I mean, it's not conclusive evidence, but it's very compelling. So again, I'll read that little factoid. In the 3,570 trading days preceding Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, this was the 30th highest daily shorting volume ever witnessed by the ETF. According to the authors, in other terms, it was one of the largest wagers placed since 2009 in the underperformance of the Israeli Stock Exchange. So here's another little interesting bit. Israeli stock shorting at the outset of COVID-19 pandemic, which momentarily precipitated one of the largest global stock market catastrophes in history, was significantly dwarfed by this shorting. A, quote, the largest intraday trading decline ever recorded occurred in March 2020 when the Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted 2,000 points, evaporating trillions of dollars from the global economy. The author's conclusion is unsurprising. Quote, it is extremely unlikely that the volume of short selling on October 2nd occurred by random chance. And I tend to agree. It's not outside of the realm of possibility that it did happen by complete chance. But, I'm skeptical of people.
Mm-hmm.
The identification of similar patterns in the trading of the Israeli ETF in April 2023, precisely when Hamas was reportedly preparing to launch a similar attack, is an additional compelling finding. The strike, which had been scheduled to closely mirror the events of October, was canceled. I mean, in case you're not following here, when a similar thing like just October 7th was the attack that happened. There was another time in April of this year when they were anticipating something very similar, but Israeli intelligence made it known that they knew about it, and then it didn't happen. Still, there was short selling. So when Hamas was reportedly preparing to launch a similar attack, is an additional compelling finding. The strike, which had been scheduled to closely mirror the events of October, was canceled when Tel Aviv publicly issued a national alert level in response to Israeli intelligence agencies gaining advance notice. So what are the chances that when this potential attack was going to happen, the same spike we saw right before the attack that actually happened occurred? I mean, that is, it's hard enough to explain away the spike that happened on October 2nd, but now you have to explain when the precursor to this attack that got thwarted, the same spike happened. So it's like, what are the chances of that?
Not many. There's not chances of a whole bunch of ballots showing up in the midnight for Joe Biden.
Yeah. So this attack was timed to start on the eve of Passover, April 5th, another targeting of a Jewish holiday. 2 days earlier, the shorting of the Israeli ETF, quote, peaked at levels very similar to those observed on October 2nd of this year. The recorded volume, quote, was far higher by any order of magnitude than other days prior. The evidence strengthens the interpretation that the trading observed in October and April was related to Hamas attacks rather than random noise. Mm-hmm. So that is the article. We can speculate as to who these nefarious actors are, I guess. There's a lot of strangeness here. I won't lie. You've got one of the most heavily guarded borders on planet Earth, yet somehow a bunch of paragliding terrorists and go-karts knew that they could breach the border on that day without being immediately annihilated, which would have happened any other time. I mean, it's really starting to seem like this was a false flag to start a world war with the Arab nations and the Islamic State, which was something that was written about over 100 years ago by Albert Pike in a letter to Giuseppe Mazzini. There's all kinds of evidence suggesting that Israel was created for this purpose, to fulfill one day. That might not be the truth, but it's also not far-fetched and out of hand to wonder what's going on. So.
Yeah, the Sabbatains talked about that, and they also talked about clothing themselves in the religions and beliefs of other people to affect their agenda, which was basically the same one that, the guy who showed up here 2,000 years talked about. So,
and isn't that the whole Hazarian takeover of Judaism basically the same story?
The same exact story, exactly. And that's not even the newest version. There's one, the Aryans, I believe, from like before 2000 BC, also were trying to were one of these like, let's take on the skin of other people and wear them and use their reputation to our advantage kind of thing. So,
do you have anything to say about the you mentioned?
I was going to so I'll try to keep it slim here. If you do a Google search and you look up the world's first IPO, you're going to find a company. Let me pull up my notes here real quick so I can make sure I'm saying the right things. Don't want to talk out of my head, so you know what I'm saying? All right, so it's the VOC, or otherwise known as the Dutch East India Company, one of the most infamous, insidious, and destructive parasitic organizations in history. There are four main branches of trade: were human beings, sex, drugs, and war. That's what these guys were all about. And you can throw weapons up in there too. So, what did they do? Well, they had a problem. At least that's what the official history says. I'm not convinced on anything in official history, but we'll just go with it for now. And the problem back then for the Dutch East India Company, which is itself a company that was sponsored by the aristocracy at the time and supported by other merchants all throughout Europe. So it's just like we have today. We have a merchant class, an international trading class who kind of grabs onto nations and then starts to twist and squeeze them. And they conscript the aristocracy to work with these guys. They fund them. They're the bankers. They get them all of the things that they need, not only the above board things like in the white market, so to speak, like the stuff that you can buy, silks, spices, all this kind of stuff, but all the black market stuff, children, people, anything you name it that the aristocracy wants to feed their, lascivious, I believe is the right word, desires. And so what did they do? Well, as many people have said, normal people don't like war and killing people and slaughtering other people. That's what psychopaths are for. That's what parasites are for. That's what the death cult is all about. And so they've always had this problem of, well, how are we going to get people to buy into our agenda so they can support us at every level? Because one of the problems with tyrannical forces is that when they start to do their tyranny thing, usually people don't like it and they start to speak out against it. But I think one of the things they figured out, and I'm not sure when they figured this out, but they certainly figured it out by then, is that, well, if you can get people to buy into it in some way, like literally with their own money, then now their future, their prosperity is directly tied to how well your conquest and your piracy schemes are, and the people will go along with it. And so what did they do? They had the first IPO, or initial public offer, in history, at least is, again, according to the official history, the Dutch East India Company under the BOC. And what they did is in 1602, they sold shares of the Dutch East India Company to the Dutch people. So effectively what they did is they had a massive, large-scale profit-sharing venture involving the very people of that country to work with the private, you know, the term privateers. Have you heard of that before? Well, it refers to these kind of companies, the Dutch East India Company, the British East India Company. There's all these different kind of companies, and they're all basically like official privateer and piracy organizations. And so what did they do? They went into the Americas, they slaughtered a bunch of Indians, they did all the things that, you know, white people are getting blamed for these days. And because of that, the people had a kind of patriotic sense of like, oh, that's great. Look, we're getting money back from all of this stuff. Of course, there were layers, and they didn't tell the people all the horrible things that were going on. They just told them a little bit of what was going on, just like today. So when you hear Nikki Haley going on the stage there, just selling her ass about how she wants to, like, you know, get all these wars and we got to end Hamas and all these kind of things, it's the same basic idea. And what happens? Why do they need billions of dollars from taxpayer money? Because they're making a big buck off of it. It's the same exact thing, except now they took that idea of selling shares, and it's not just you know, one little IPO. In my opinion, most of what happens in the stock market is itself a kind of grand upscaled industrial scale version of this. You get globalists to set the bar for what you want the other people to do. You sell shares because people need to know to make sure that their money makes money, because we live in an inflationary economy. And now people will put the blinders on and ignore the reality of what's happening around them, even though they're buying shares in a company and supporting an economy that is known to kill millions of people, destroy people's lives in the name of globalism, modernization, injecting vaccines into people, you know, putting porn into schools, or you name it. There's all sorts of stuff, all sorts of insidious things that happen that people turn a blind eye to because they need to make sure their retirement accounts are filled, or all these other kind of things. So I just wanted to highlight that, because what you showed was just another glaring example of that very same agenda. You got people at the top, not necessarily everyone in Israel, but some portion of the Israeli people probably knew what was going on and got in on the insider trade beforehand. And what you uncovered was that. So, and
we have Ruby Ray Media and others talking about, you know, the fact that they are, you know, not necessarily Semitic people. You know, I mean, we get branded as anti-Semites for criticizing them, but the fact is, most people living in Israel have no Semitic DNA. There are studies out there that have proven this. Of course, you can't talk about them, but they're out there regardless. Mm-hmm. And it's funny you mentioned the East India Company and 1602. That was a very important time period for the cabal. It's like it's existed in all of these different time periods and different configurations. And at that time, it was like, you know, you had the Dutch East India Company and the British East India Company were like the BlackRock and Vanguard of their time. Yeah. Also, if you mix them up with the military-industrial complex. And, you know, I believe it was Elizabeth at the time. Her whole court was just filled with Rosicrucians, which were part of the, you know, continuation of the Eleusinian mystery religion and the Celtic pagan religion that kind of married itself together in one thing and hid itself in Masonry and Rosicrucianism. And the people who are the top of the top in that hidden organization are just all littered all throughout history. They're on both sides of the Revolutionary War. Benjamin Franklin was one of them. He repeatedly went over to Lord Robert Sheldrake's ancestral home. He was running the East India Company at the time. They were like this, but ostensibly fighting each other in a war. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah. So these people are always, you know, we might be like the Israelites, but it's like it's people of all nations that have risen to the top of their, you know, respective, I guess, food chain, and now they all coordinate with one another. And it's really not one group of people, just the worst sociopaths of every group of people working together, albeit reluctantly at times. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, I'll just 10 seconds. I'll say me and Jordan did a show on the music industry and how it was bought out by the prison industrial complex, and how once that happened, they basically used their media machine to prop up gangster rappers who would then seed insidious, malevolent values into the black population and the inner city population, who would go on to commit crimes, who would then go on to fill the prisons, who we would pay for in those prisons, and they'd make a big buck in the whole process. And they sold shares to middle tier people to keep their mouth shut and to go along with the scam. So this is a very old thing. It's happening for a long time. All right, now, before we move on to our next and potentially final segment, let's hear from another one of our wonderful sponsors.
You asked and we listened. We've taken your suggestions and we've made our already amazing Percale bed sheets even better. As a thank you, we're bringing these to you for as low as $24.98 with your promo code. And our new line of Percale bed sheets include everything you loved about our original sheets. Lightweight, durable, breathable, and they sleep cool and crisp. But now, because of you, they're made with 100% long staple cotton and the highest thread count to date. These sheets are softer and more durable than ever before. Plus, they come in all these new colors and styles. And you'll be getting 5-star luxury sheets delivered directly to your front door for as low as $24.98. Not only that, they come with our 10-year warranty and the 60-day money-back guarantee. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen now. Use your promo code to save 50% or more. That's as low as $24.98. This introductory offer won't last long, so please order now.
All right. Good old Mike. Thanks, Mike, for the
God
support.
love him. God bless him.
And all right. So what's up next, Ryan?
I think you have
Oh, I got one. Yes, you're right. All right. Well, this is really quick. Again, show notes if you want to read any more of this, which I strongly suggest. Martin Armstrong's got an awesome take on a lot of things. Talk about a real prophet in the sense that he can use his intelligence to predict the future way better than any of these globalist nincompoops that basically are just gaslighting everybody. He had a person who he has a blog. People ask him questions. The question asked of him was, Marty, have you mentioned that Trudeau's freezing of accounts of anyone who donated to the truckers was a test run for the CBDCs? Do you think that's the goal? As in, do you think that the goal is for the globalists to confiscate people's money out of their accounts? He says, not really, although that's one aspect of it. Republicans passed a legislation that no president in NATO can withdraw from the U.S. So this is the thing I was mentioning earlier that we'd bring up here. This will enable the neocons to start war before the 2024 election. Again, this guy has a piece of software called Socrates. It has successfully predicted a bunch of very important things, and that's why he got thrown in jail, because he refused to give the source code to the Pentagon. So when he said something like that, I definitely give it a little more credence than anyone, although, of course, we always got to fact check and see what's really going on. And this is assuming it might be Trump to make it so that he cannot exit World War III. Every politician who voted for that legislation should be thrown out of office in 2024, period. I agree with him. That said, the CBDCs are intended to control our social behavior. This transforms society into a digital prison, which it already is, by the way. We are already living in a prison made by the prisoners. I think that line from Dinner with Andre is spot on. And which is why the founding fathers outlawed direct taxation. The rally to Marx at the end of the 19th century led to the introduction of the income tax. I'm not even showing you guys this. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. They introduced the payroll tax because Roosevelt's Marxist agenda was to include Social Security, and we, of course, had to be forced to save our own future. That became a slush fund that was restricted by buying only government debt to fund this Marxist agenda. You are being imprisoned with every piece of legislation. They're reporting $6 transactions, like reporting $600 transactions through various cash apps. You have lost all your liberty. So basically what he's saying is that the goal here is, are they going to take your money? Well, no, they're not going to take your money because they already did that. They don't need to take your money. They have a system where they can print any amount of money that they want. Let me just paint a picture for you, and then I'll slide it over to Ryan here. People are like, oh my God, they're going to take the money out of our bank accounts with negative inflation, and they're going to confiscate our wealth just like they did in 1933. It's like, they don't need to do that. They already did it. Imagine Monopoly. Imagine playing a game of Monopoly where everybody gets their portion, and then the guy who works for the bank, he's like, he gets his portion too, but when he needs to buy up all the property, he's like, well, I got an endless line of credit, so bank, just give me whatever money I need, and poof, we're all good. That's exactly what happens right now. There are rolling endless line of credit that certain companies, entities, and people have, while you're busting your ass, selling your life out to go work for some globalist to get pittance, while you're missing your kids growing up, while you're missing time with your wife, while you're missing all these things, and your community is getting destroyed. There are people like Bill Gates and all these other yokels who are just getting endless money, any amount of money they need to fund anything they want, well, meaning anything that fits with the globalist agenda. So the game is absolutely rigged. They don't need to steal your money because they get the same result, which is you running on a treadmill, spending all of whatever free time you have watching Dancing with the Stars instead of actually working with your neighbors and your family and your kids to try to make something better for your life. And this is why we're all about community and actually learning the law, learning what really takes to defend our minds and our hearts from this insanity. And I think that's what is going to save this country in the future. And unfortunately, everybody who isn't in on that is probably bought in with the New World Order agenda. They don't even know it. And they are going to be sold down the line, just like the Marxists were in the 30s and all the other stuff. So, all right.
Assuming artificial intelligence doesn't start completely running all of the news cycles and just seeding the population with lies, which may very well happen. If we look at this next headline, the age of deepfake news is here. Journalists have branded plans for artificial intelligence news anchors, quote, utterly terrifying, as an LA-based channel looks set to launch them next year. So any initial thoughts on that headline?
Oh, man. I want to go off a lot, but I don't want to chew up the little time we have today. But yeah,
okay,
I'll just let you talk, man. I'll throw in some comments.
Well, it's a short. I think it's a shorter article. I'll just read it real quick. LA-based Channel One is utilizing the technology to generate digital humans. That featured image up there, completely AI.
Not really, no kidding.
Yeah, it looks strikingly real. They are using these generated digital humans to provide global news updates. The station intends to deliver them as early as February on free ad-supported streaming television platforms, including applications like Crackle, Tubi, and Pluto. Naturally, reporters throughout the United States are appalled by the news and have warned that it could have enormous repercussions for an already parched news industry. Here we have Kristen Ruby saying, if you believe in the concept of fake news, you have seen nothing. At least your news is presented by humans. When AI news anchors replace human news anchors, the concept of fake news will have a totally different meaning.
No kidding.
Alec Lazenby, Canada's BC Today reporter, also shared his concerns on X, saying, quote, this is utterly, utterly terrifying. While the development of an entirely AI-powered broadcast is beyond impressive, it could have huge ramifications for an already depleted news industry and accelerate the loss of high-quality reporters and anchors. As it is right now, most of these mainstream people are just actors regurgitating what's on the paper in front of them. There's no journalism taking place. It's complete propaganda. It's very low effort. All you got to do is show up, look pretty, get your makeup done, and talk in a very assuring voice and that non-regional diction that just like hypnotizes people. Adam Mosam, the proprietor of Channel One, who might even just be an AI construct himself. I saw a picture of him. I was like, I'm not convinced that guy's not some sort of like AI robot. He assured thedailymail.com that his organization will not take advantage of the contentious technology. While Massam acknowledged the inevitability of AI-generated news being misapplied, he said Channel One strives to, quote, get out in front of this and create a responsible use of the technology. Oh, well, all my fears have now been allayed. But the general public, however, envisions a dystopian future in which, quote, fake news is ubiquitous due to its generation by computer algorithms. And right here, again, is that picture. This is what some of the Channel One's anchors will look like. Digital avatars created from a scan of an actual person.
They even give her neck wrinkles because they need to make it look legitimate. So
yeah, they I guess that's kind of like what they do with video games nowadays, where they scan someone in, and then the computer knows all of their proportions and details, and then they can like kind of make a digital avatar of them. So in the past year, numerous online publications embarked on this endeavor, and almost all of them came to regret their choice. Gannett, a mass media conglomerate, possesses several publications in the United States, including the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Arizona Central, Florida Today. They're all like local publications, all of which utilize what's LED AI, which is an artificial intelligence service. They use it to produce local high school athletics articles. And that's really like that is the entrance to journalism. That's the first job anyone can get, really. If you're a kid and you're going to go on that trajectory, the easiest first gig to get is writing high school sports. I did it. Then you can go to college. Maybe you'll get on a college newspaper, but like high school sports is really the first thing. The school paper, high school sports being one of the primary things they talk about in high school papers. So let's just completely cut that out and have it be run by AI. It's like journalists are already lazy and bad. Like they need to be able to get in and learn early and young. But they just want, it's easier on the bottom line, I guess, to just have artificial intelligence do it. In August, Gannett terminated its AI experiment due to a multitude of article errors. Although local high school news may not elicit public concern, there is apprehension that such errors could occur on a global level. One more publication that attempted this and failed was Sports Illustrated. The legacy publication was criticized a month ago for publishing AI-generated content, including the use of fabricated author photographs and profiles. So if you look at this is not even real. The AI created this image. It created this bio. It did all. It's all AI-generated.
Well, what the crazy part is they're not even telling you it's AI. So it's like, hey, we're lying to you like outright,
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the public outrage would have been a little different if they said, hey, we're doing this. This is our AI, but they didn't. And I think the CEO of Sports Illustrated got let go or fired as a result of this. I don't know if I included it in this article, but anyway, Massam claims that Channel 1 intends to inform viewers in an open manner regarding the differentiation between original and AI-generated content. Nonetheless, the public appears unconvinced. I personally am unconvinced. All the dystopian inevitabilities aside, there's no reason that AI should be involved in journalism at all outside of helping with grammar, helping with sentence structure, and maybe helping with the research process, like using Bard or ChatGPT to help you find information. Outside of that, we don't need it. Today's journalists are already lazy enough. They're making things worse by their, weaponized incompetence. Some people might call it. It's making things even easier. It's like choosing to not work out a muscle that's atrophying. So it's not hard to see how the negatives of this far outweigh the purported positives. So
yep, 100%. I completely agree. It's getting pretty crazy out there, and I think if this is what they're starting to show us, who knows how long we've been dealing with this AI kind of nonsense. And the one comment I'll leave here, and then we'll jump to another one of our wonderful sponsors, is that the substance of AI is it's puppeteering. There's a real person with an agenda behind the scenes pulling strings somewhere, whether that's a propagandist, like all the yokels you see on CNN, or it's an actual totally and completely fabricated person. The end result from one perspective is essentially the same. They're the ones who are getting their agenda across, not us. And then the last thing I'll say about this is that it's just like what happened when Marxism came to power and the Soviets and the Bolsheviks. But what they did is they weaponized the youth against the middle class, the youth against the middle class, those people that signed on to the Marxist agenda, who sold out their own countrymen, their own family members, their own brothers and sisters, thought they were going to be the new kings and queens in the kingdom. And you know what? They were the first ones to the gulag, getting rounded up and killed. And that's exactly what we see here. All these reporters all huffing and puffing. I mean, no, obviously they're human, so I'm not saying that they should be carted off to the gulag, but these are the people that sold out their own country by spewing New World Order propaganda for years. And you know what? Now they're on the chopping block because the cabal has a better system. And eventually they probably want to get rid of, the underling human class entirely and just make us all cattle so they can pump, do whatever it is that they need to do, cut off our foreskin so they can make face creams out of it. And that's all we'll be good for. And then they'll just have these crazy machines that run everything and these AIs that run everything, and we can't even touch them, like an Elysium kind of a world. So anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys ever saw, it was earlier this year, and it was on Fox Nation when Tucker was still with the company. He had that interview with Elon Musk where they talk about AI. They talk about aliens and some other stuff too, but maybe he said there's other places. I don't follow everything Elon Musk does, but I do remember that interview. He was trying to paint a picture of worst case scenario, what AI could do. And right now we're already living in a fake reality. Like most of the stuff we consume, most of the media, and especially all of the kind of stuff that gets peppered into TV shows and the like, that kind of shape your worldview without you even really realizing it. It's shaping it in a certain way that is not really accurate to the way the world really is. Well, imagine that times 100, because AI could like have more of a penchant for long-term planning than humans probably, and it will be better at kind of steering our consciousness in the direction it wants us to go. Like completely fabricated stories that are told in a way to elicit specific results in different target audiences. It could get to the point where AI is making false flags. It could get to the point where AI is just running the show.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just further proving that. Like in that interview earlier this year, he made it seem like it was a distant possibility that we should be aware of. And it's already starting by February of 2024.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And as the old saying goes, if they're showing us to it now, they already perfected it 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, with that, let's take with all this talk of stress and end of the world and our families and children being weaponized against us, there's a reason why you need a bit of relief in life. And that's why you want to turn to the Flying Gun Rum Company. The holidays are the perfect time to grab a few bottles of Flying Gang rum to share. Flying Gang rum is meticulously produced from pure Florida sugarcane, aged to perfection in ex-bourbon barrels. And then select cast finished, a rum so pure it comes with no added sugar, colors, or artificial flavoring. That's right, folks, this is pure rum. They are on a mission to change how we perceive sipping rum, and shipping it too. To Florida, it's what wine is to Napa, bourbon to Kentucky, and whiskey to Tennessee. This iconic rum is all about elevating the connoisseur's experience, capturing the rich history and unique character of handcrafted rum. And now, for a limited time, Badlanders will get $20 off their purchase of over $100 with promo code Badlands. Now's the perfect time to grab a few bottles for your holiday parties and give a gift that give a gift to that rum lover in your life. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv/rum and use promo code Badlands for this special offer. That's badlandsmedia.tv/rum, promo code Badlands. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to a quickie.
We got a brief Telegram section here for you folks, and then we'll probably clock out a little early today. It's our last show of the year.
That's right. So if we don't get a chance to tell you Happy New Year's, Merry Christmas. Oh my God, did I say something religious? You bet I did.
You gotta say Happy Holidays.
I know. But I'll also say Happy Hanukkah. I won't say Happy Kwanzaa because that holiday was invented by Marxists in the 50s and a whole bunch of people fell for it. But anyway, here we go. So let's.
We got a clip up here of two fine young gentlemen showing Christian conservatives the truth about how the Israelis really feel about them and their religion.
Oh yeah,
20-minute clip. We might as well just play the whole thing.
Yeah, we'll be back now.
I know. Maybe it's not a bad idea to just let it play out at the end of the show.
Well, actually, I am very curious about what you guys think. So what? Maybe we will do that. Why don't we do that? We'll end the show. I'll play the clip, and then at the end, while you're out, I'll come back and ask people to pop some in the comments or something like that.
Yeah, that'll work. Because then if we're getting off early, we'll end up at the same time. So
okay,
that's not a bad idea.
Cool. All right, so stick around at the end, guys.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, we're going to showcase the segment we did on Zionists at the end of our last episode, so people can see it.
Sorry, I wasn't showing the right thing. We're talking about this clip right here, and we'll play it at the end. But go ahead. All right, next one.
So our first clip is Steve Bannon. I don't know who this other yokel is. Sean Spicer, talking about who they think will be the VP, and Bannon seems to think it's going to be a woman. So check out that clip.
Let's just start with Tucker Carlson. Would he make a good vice president?
I think Tucker make a great vice president. I just don't think. Well, because I think he's got a very clear vision of what MAGA and America First are. He's got a very clear vision of the politics, of the policies of it. He's savvy in politics, and he's got something that's so important in today is the ability to communicate. Trump shows us more than anything the ability to communicate those ideas to a mass audience is very important. Now, if you ask me, he was a likely candidate now, I don't think so, because I am adamant, or not adamant. My thinking is very structured that I believe President Trump will have a female as the vice president.
Thank you.
When people pitch Tim Scott and Carson, who I love, Tim Scott's a good man. Tucker I said they're all terrific, but I think we got to start looking at that list of 10 people that are females. And I think President Trump.
So give me that list.
Well, I think it's people like. Well, this is why I think it's very important for America First to make sure it ain't Nikki Haley.
So that's right. Thank you.
You didn't want to give the list, I guess.
He didn't, but Spicer was this Trump secretary. I'm sorry, press secretary for Trump, apparently. I forgot all about that.
Before or after Huckabee or Homegirl?
I think it was like one of the first ones, wasn't it?
Okay.
Anyway, right, so that's interesting. We got this clip here, Lindsey Graham, probably doing what Lindsey Graham does best. Any intro you want to give?
Oh, yeah, it's just Lindsey doing Lindsey, apparently saying that there is no, this is what I was telling you about yesterday. He says there's no evidence, smoking gun in the Biden impeachment inquiry, or else he would have seen it already.
So this is Lindsey Graham destroying any credibility he has left. Got it. Okay, here we go.
Okay, let's turn to the other big story on Capitol Hill, the impeachment, of course, of impeachment inquiry into President Biden. Your colleague, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa, said that he does not see any evidence, quote, that the president is guilty of anything. Do you agree with him? Is there any evidence so far?
You know, I haven't really been paying that much attention to it. They have to prove that President Biden somehow financially benefited from the business enterprises of Hunter Biden. We'll see.
Have they done it yet, in your mind?
If there were a smoking gun, I think we'd be talking about it. But
okay, let's.
Wow, what an idiot! So he hasn't been paying attention, so his opinion means trash anyway.
Yeah, way to out yourself in the beginning of your statement.
All right, well that speaks for itself. Let's go here. What else we got?
This is a good one. It's longer, but since we only have like 3 videos, it's worth playing. I'd say this is Kash Patel kind of like really hammering home an article that I chose not to put in here. I totally forgot to put it in the Rapids. It was the article I did on the FISA renewal and the 147 Republicans in Congress who kind of just blew it, basically outed themselves as uniparty stooges or incompetent or unaware, essentially rewarding the FBI for all of their partisan hits they did on MAGA. So.
The biggest concern I have going forward is the politicization and weaponization and creation of a 2-tier system of justice as a result. Back when Devin Nunes and I ran the Russiagate investigation and exposed the FISA corruption, we recommended a slew of fixes so it never happened again. Unfortunately, Congress chose to allow 702 FISA to basically be reauthorized. What does that mean? What is 702? It's fancy for foreign intelligence surveillance. It means me as a former national security prosecutor and intelligence operative would go overseas and manhunt terrorists. That's what it's for. But the FISA court in April of 2022 publicized an opinion that said the FBI used it illegally 275,000 times domestically against Americans, 16 different occasions against those affiliated with January 6th, 19,000 times domestically against donors to a congressional campaign, and wait for it, 24,000 separate times against Americans and groups in and around January 6th. That FISA process has been turned on its head, redirected inwards, and anyone who says, oh, that's just a Republican conspiracy speak, that's the FISA court that rescinded Rod Rosenstein's illegal surveillance of Donald Trump twice based on our investigation, and now they do it again, and they prove the FBI and DOJ have weaponized justice, and the Republican leadership in Congress allowed it to be reauthorized essentially through the next election cycle.
So what will this mean in terms of the FBI, Christopher Wray, going into the next election?
Well, that's just it. Christopher Wray goes to Congress and says, I fixed it all. We have more training. Well, unfortunately, when you have the police officers, the cops in this country who break the law, we can't rely on themselves to police themselves. That is a communist form of a police representation. What we have to have had done is Congress to put forth a bill that put in cops from Congress in the FISA process at the FISA court, limiting their abuse of this power. I mean, just think of it. If Chris Wray and Merrick Garland and company utilized the FISA process to manhunt terrorists that were illegally coming into our country through our southern border, we wouldn't lose 24 of them based on their own testimony. And so what Chris Wray has now done is weaken American national security and redirected one of the most sensitive intelligence apparatuses against elections and those protesting their free speech right within America. And every time the FISA court asked the FBI, why did you allow your agents to do this? Their answer was, I could not recall. And they gave them a get out of jail free card. And the Republican majority, I know this is harsh, rewarded them for breaking the law and allowing this election interference to continue through 2024, mainly against Donald Trump.
Wow, there's.
I would have loved to have seen that whole segment because it's got Dershowitz there too, and that's just like obviously two law titans. You know,
right? Yeah, exactly.
Would have been a good one to see.
That's odd. What a clip, yeah.
And this last one here, well, actually, I guess there's another one after that, but this was the good news bit that I thought we could add to the mix.
Oh, nice. Okay, here we go. Oh,
Mangled mobile homes, splintered wood, and debris everywhere. The Holt Park mobile home community has been decimated by a tornado.
I ran to the back bedroom, jumped on top of Princeton. By the time I jumped on Princeton, the walls collapsed. And then that's when the siren went off.
Sydney Moore says she held on to her 1-year-old Princeton, and her boyfriend tried to get to their 4-month-old son, Lord.
He went to try to grab Lord out the bassinet, and the roof had already came off. And the bassinet was the first thing to go up. But Lord stayed in the bassinet, like in the air. Like he's seen him still in the bassinet in the air. Although they did 2 twirls, he said, and then they got thrown.
When it passed, she tells me, the first thing she screamed was, "Where's my baby?" You can see this up here is where her pack and play is wrapped around a tree.
Thank God he wasn't in it.
Cindy says it was the scariest moments of her life.
He finally found Lord. He was placed in a tree. Like, I swear to God, like he looked like he was placed in a tree with a gash on the side of his face right here. It was a deep, deep gash, but they glued it shut.
They had to hike a mile to get out, and Lord was rushed to the hospital with a concussion and a big cut on his ear.
Lord, he was crying, and I heard him crying, and he kept like falling asleep, waking up, falling asleep, waking up.
Her boyfriend broke his collarbone. They're all banged up, but lucky to be alive.
By the grace of God, I swear, like they survived.
Wow, that's awesome. What a clip. All right, that's great. That's a little foretelling for what Trump's going to do to the rest of the world here.
Yeah, I don't know if it was you or Allie popped this one in.
I popped it in. So what we're going to do is why don't we go ahead and let you get out of here? I want to play this bigger clip, and then when it comes towards the end, we'll have a little. I'll ask you guys to leave some comments. We'll have a little conversation. I'll let Ryan know what's going on, and then next week we can talk about anything that comes up about that, and then I'll finish off whatever's left in the Telegram section.
I kind of want to stick around and see what the chat has to say. Honestly,
okay, all right.
If we're gonna do it, we gotta watch.
Let's do it. All right.
Well, the chat disappears after the.
It's 20 minutes long, so I was gonna go get a top off a coffee.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah. We'll be back for sure.
Well, yeah, we'll be back. We're gonna let this play out, so definitely stick around. We're gonna come back. We're gonna have a nice little conversation afterwards.
And honestly, let us know how you feel about any of this. There's probably context we're missing here, but this is something you're not going to see in the Gateway Pundit, in any Con Inc. kind of outlet, publication, or content creators. They're not going to cover this. This is something that you're only going to really see here at Badlands and Vigilant News specifically.
Yeah, that's right. We actually want to share the truth with you. So here we go. So I'm going to play the clip, and we'll be back after the clip. Here we go. All right, so let's get into the other story you wanted to cover.
Yeah. So we've seen a lot of horrific images, videos, and stories regarding the kind of things that the acts of violence committed by Hamas. It goes without saying that these actions are reprehensible. But as long as we're calling out reprehensible behavior, we should really take a critical look at some of the forces operating within Israel. I want to remind everybody that it's my stance. I think Justin and I are in agreement here that America should not be providing any money or bombs to Israel. It's especially the way the country is right now. We just can't do it and shouldn't be doing it. There's a lot of pro-Israel propaganda in Con Inc. A lot of our favorite outlets are reporting extremely one-sidedly on the whole situation. It's like we've been so radicalized by this us versus them kind of mentality that we'll overlook atrocities as they're being committed so long as it's our team that's in favor of them. But is Israel really your team? That's, I mean, as with any country, there's a whole multitude of different people there. But, you know, there are also some nefarious actors there as well. And it's like a lot of these Con Inc. outlets are just completely ignoring that fact. as far as I can tell, the general stance by Christian conservatives on Israel is fueled by its fulfillment of end times prophecy. But I'd ask you, do you think that the military-industrial complex and the other nefarious actors in this world wouldn't use that against you? So I'm not here to argue in favor one way or the other of either side of this. I'm on the side of my tax dollars not going to the ceaseless murder and, quite frankly, the genocide taking place in Gaza presently. Anyway, the point we wanted to make here is that the sad reality of a lot of Christian Zionists, Christian conservatives, they extend all these prayers to a people who completely hate them. And that's fine. That's what spirituality is all about. But do our tax dollars need to go there too? That's something totally different. And it's not just like here in America, Israel isn't a united population. There's a difference between the Orthodoxy and Zionists, for example. There are many walks of life there as there are here, but it is an undeniable fact that there is a bitter contempt for Christianity that exists in Israel. And, there are certain people out there who are kind of deluded and just completely ignore this fact. So we're going to show a few videos that might upset some of you. I want to say that I know plenty of Orthodox Jews who do not engage in this kind of behavior. But it's not just, there's multiple groups, as we said. So this is how some of the folks in Israel conduct themselves towards Christians. And did you want to say anything before we start showing these videos?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what you said, which is, usually when we talk about anything that's hyper controversial, this might be the most controversial topic that we could possibly talk about, or anyone for that matter. There's a kind of irrational reactionariness, which is like, oh, well, he's commenting about this little subset, therefore it must be everybody he's commenting on, or we're commenting on. And we're not doing that. We are trying to showcase some videos and direct evidence of some things that some Christian conservatives who support Israel blindly do not know about and do not take the time to investigate. Does that mean that all Jews share these opinions? No, of course not. There's all sorts of Jewish people. I happen to know many. They do not hold the opinions that we're about to hear now. And I just want to emphasize that. So when we say, hey, we're going to present these to you, we're not in any way, shape, or form saying that all Jews can be lumped into this category and therefore we should treat them, with contempt or anything like that. We're just saying that this is an opinion that if we really want to get to know the truth and we want to try to do the right thing, we should learn the truth as much as humanly possible and take a full and deep approach to that investigation. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
So without further ado, some videos that you're not going to see on the Gateway Pundit or Fox News or, any of the other sites that Christian conservatives tend to flock to.
Any preamble to?
Well, this one is a woman. She's a mission worker. She's a Christian and she's in Israel, and she's trying to minister to people, but just look how she is treated as she's recording this video.
The Messianic Jewish Alliance is gathered, and believers from all over Israel are gathered in the pavilion to lift up the name of Yeshua. And that's not really welcomed by a lot of people here in Israel. That's not really understood by the ultra-Orthodox community. And we love our Jewish brothers and sisters. We love these people. But the reality is that they don't see Yeshua as Messiah. A couple years ago, we were here in the same place, and they yelled, Yeshua's dead, and different things in Hebrew. There was tear gas. I'm grateful that tonight there hasn't been any overt violence. People are yelling. People are.
Fuck you! Let me pull. Let me pull. Let pull.
And so I just want to ask you if you would join me in praying for the peace in Jerusalem. If you would join me in praying for their true restoration in Israel. The Messianic Jewish Alliance is gathered and believe.
Any commentary you want to have before I jump in?
I mean, I think it speaks for itself. Yeah, so our greatest ally, right, guys?
Yeah, I mean, this is like they're heckling. Like what it looks like happens is I don't know if they noticed right away, but there's almost like a rallying call, like somebody saying, "Hey, over here," and then all of a sudden it's like a troop of hecklers come, to heckle, and
maybe that's just an isolated incident, and there's just some misled youth. But let's keep watching these videos and see what they really think about Christians.
This one's a little hard to excuse away. All right, here we go.
The police here, 99% conviction rate. Shut up. We don't do anything illegal. You cannot take us to jail. If you are not involved, please go. Shalom, my friend. We bless you.
You're in my country.
You come to the United States, you can say whatever you want to say. That is the free world, yes?
You're not in the United States. You're in Israel.
I understand.
You cannot say whatever you want to say here.
Yes, you can. It's legal. It is legal to preach about Yeshua. We preach at Damascus Gate. The police said it's okay. We preach at Jaffa Gate. The police say it's okay. Please stop. I respect you. Respect me. Huh? That is the right thing. Are you Jewish? Do you want to honor God? That is the godly thing to do. We respect one another.
The godly thing to do is to kill you.
The godly thing is to kill me.
That's right.
Yes?
That's what the Torah says.
The Torah says to kill us.
The Torah says that people who worship idols such as yourself, when there is a Sanhedrin,
to kill us.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what the Torah says.
So we know how the Jewish people feel about Christians, yes? That you discriminate against Christians.
Christians are idol
You
worshippers.
discriminate against
The Torah
Christians.
says that Christianity is idol worship.
There you go.
That's one thing that a lot of the Christian Zionists should consider while they get out their checkbooks to send endless amounts of money to Israel.
And here's one here.
You have 6 billion idol worshippers who makes God angry every second of their life. Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Tibet, Nepal, Thailand. So many. India alone is 500 million. China is 2 billion. So many. 2 billion Christians, which are idol worshippers. Between Chinese, Hindus, Buddhists, and Christian, at least 6.5 billion people are idol worshippers that, according to the Torah, do not have the right to live. Idol worshipper goy, it's death penalty. Not only Jews, even a goy who bow down to an idol, who believe in JC, deserve death penalty. You have.
So, I just want to emphasize again here, we're not saying that all Jews believe this. We're not saying that you shouldn't support people who are suffering or have been attacked or all that kind of stuff. But we have to be able to discern between people who are, in my opinion, being immoral. And from my perspective, from a spiritual perspective, I do not think God has one rules for one people and one rules for another people. And this whole idea of a chosen people has been weaponized against humanity for a very long time. If you look at all throughout history, and this idea of the chosen people narrative and how that is used to do all sorts of things, it's usually not a good thing. It's not for peace and tolerance and unity, and let's all just try to live happy and peace and respect each other. So, any comments on that?
That's right. Well, I mean, we see all of these terrible things, in all of these various outlets that we pull from on a daily basis about how awful the Muslims are and the things that they say, but total crickets about stuff like this.
Right.
Why is that?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. So, for me, it's like, I don't care who you are, whether you're Jewish, Christian, whatever. If you're advocating for violating people's rights, then that's a problem, and I'm going to try to stop you. It's that simple. All right, here we go. There's another good one.
So that's about the eye in here. The last verse also very, very, in a certain way, the most forceful verse in the whole Bible. It says, happy is the one that takes the infants of Babel and of Edom and smashes them on the rock, just like they did to us. The last, and this is what we say before benching, right? That's the end of this. That the ultimate revenge again are going, innocent infants. Happy is the one that takes the infants and smashes them and kills them on the rock. And then we bless Hashem for the food that we ate. All of the letters of the alphabet from Aleph to Tav equal Hakol Emet. Emet is called the beginning, the middle, and the end of the entire alphabet. So this chapter, it's Gemati. The whole chapter is Hakol. Everything is true. From the very beginning of our feeling, sitting in Golgotha on the rivers of Babylon, until the final emotion It is expressed in this chapter of happy is you that takes the infants of Babel and smashes them on the rock, just as they did to us. How many letters? We said there are 80.
Okay.
Well, I guess I've never smashed an infant upon the rock, but I just have a feeling it wouldn't make me that happy. But, you know, if it makes him happy, let's send him all the money we can muster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, come on now. All right. And then, oh boy, there's this guy.
Yeah, this guy is great. He really puts it into perspective.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Torah bro.
Once Edom is destroyed, along with its false Messiah, then and only then can Israel rise, and Messiah ben David can gather the exiles and build the third temple. Erev Shabbat is the end of the 6th millennia, which we are currently in. And Edom must be destroyed, and the false Messiah must be completely exposed. And once that happens, then the real one actually comes. And then Jerusalem can be built properly. When this one falls, the other rises. Israel and Rome can never stand at the same time, which is why I told you, why did he hang on Friday Eve, Erev Shabbat? Because that is to show you that at the end of days, Christianity will be no more. And then finally, Israel will rise. Israel and Rome can never stand at the same time. They are opposites. Jacob, Israel, and Esav, Edom. And when the false Messiah falls, the other, the real Messiah, will rise. It is already known that Israel's greatest enemy is Edom. And God turned things around so that the Netzer Nit'av, the despicable descendants, and the filth of wicked Esav, who is their God, would be buried in Israel, in Jerusalem. This is why Jesus was actually buried in Jerusalem. The reason for this is that even the enemies of God should pray for the city of God, which is Jerusalem, where their God, Jesus, was buried. Yes, I said buried, because this causes an evil angel to say amen against his will. You see, this is the fast one that God actually pulled on Satan, when all those who follow Satan think that they're pulling a fast one on God. They sing psalms for the restoration of Jerusalem and the gathering of Israel to Zion, and they have no idea that they are actually praying for the establishment of the holy in the world and the destruction of their very religion. So thank you. We accept all your prayers. The Kalipa over here that is going to be destroyed, the Kalipa, as we said, as I said, even in my stories,
That's the most important part of the whole video right there.
Exactly. I'm going to actually play that again.
Yeah, play it one more time.
If you're supporting, these things blindly, you really need to hear this.
Evil angel to say amen against his will. You see, this is the fast one that God actually pulled on Satan, when all those who follow Satan think that they're pulling a fast one on God. They sing psalms for the restoration of Jerusalem and the gathering of Israel to Zion, and they have no idea that they are actually praying for the establishment of the holy in the world and the destruction of their very religion. So thank you. We accept all your prayers.
Yeah, that is, and for me, that out of all the clips we've seen, and there's a couple more, I think, that is the most damning. And when I say damning, I don't mean this is proof that the evil Jews are the ones behind everything. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm saying that Christians are being deceived, especially here in the United States. I went to 2 churches. I'm currently in one right now. And the usual, we have to, just like he said, pray for the restoration of Israel and all these kind of things is openly talked about. We're actively sending money. I just heard a sermon where they were talking about raising money to send to Israel. So, the question is are they taking the time to understand what that money is going towards and what they're actually supporting? I guarantee you the answer is no. I guarantee you if I show this video to my congregation, most people would be deeply offended that I'd even question their blind and vigilant support or vehement support of something that they have not taken the time to understand. And they have been duped. I'm sorry. This is a situation where people are being duped. So,
and maybe we're wrong, and maybe you can enlighten us as to why this is all acceptable. I mean, it is acceptable that they have the right to believe these things and say these things, but that doesn't mean that we should be funding a war over there. You will not be able to convince me of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, let's consider how else do they feel about Christians. There's another clip where this is at some kind of school or something, Christian missionaries, and how the children are being allowed to treat them.
Wow. No kidding. Okay.
By the children? Shake it, shake it. Excited people here. Why you raise your voice? Raise your voice. Why you raise your voice? Let you raise what's not you. Don't raise your voice. Go. Because you're inside people. Try to understand.
Let us leave.
What inside people?
Let us leave.
Yes. What inside people?
The adults just let this happen.
I mean, these things kids don't do this without at the very least some kind of endorsement of what's happening or turning a blind eye. All right, well, there you go. There's that clip, and we got the chat back up. So if you guys are in Rumble, watching Rumble, we'd really like to hear your feedback on any of this stuff.
Yeah, we'll probably air this again tomorrow, maybe. I don't know. But one last little thing to cover here is this chart. It's the very last thing in that Telegram thing we put together here. To just take a gander at this. So evangelicals, they have a plus 39 net favorability of Jews. Jews return the favor with a negative 40 favorability rating of evangelical Christians. That really just sums it up right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, folks. It is not a mutual respect. It is not a mutual love situation. I mean, at least in some respects. I know that I used to work for the Gem Hebrew School out in LA. They were wonderful people. We would videotape the rabbi going around giving homeless people food, but there is a contingent of people who don't share those kind of values, and it's just something to consider. Like, why will outlets like Pundit, Breitbart, even Stephen Bannon, just unwavering support for Israel, no discussion about any of these things, just send the money over there? It's like, you're total hypocrites. Well, why not fund Ukraine too? If the Bible said that Ukraine would expand to include Crimea, then would you be okay with sending the money over there and continuing a war that we have no right being in? It's just, there's some hypocrisy that needs to be addressed, I think.
At the very least, we got to have a conversation about it. I mean, so yeah, I'll echo what you said earlier. Like, maybe we got it wrong. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing here. Maybe there's a piece of this that explains these things. I don't know what it is, but I'm open to it, because I'll be the first one to tell you I'm hardly an expert in all these issues.
Yeah. But yeah, let us know where we're wrong about any of this, because we like to learn, and when we're wrong about something, we'd like to correct that. But what I see here is just something that you're not going to see anywhere else in conservative media. So that's why we're showing it here.
That's right. Yeah, and that's what we're all about: being vigilant. Being vigilant doesn't just mean sharing things that people like to hear and calling it a day. So. sound. All right, no sound. My bad.
Oh,
it was nothing really all that important anyway.
Yeah, just real lowbrow stuff.
But
my dog was shouting all kinds of obscenities.
He was trying to rat us out to Media Matters when this whole clip was playing. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I know Media Matters is gonna love this one and the ADL, of course.
Yep.
So that's good.
But yeah, so we know that this isn't that what we just heard as far as opinions is not shared by every Jewish person or Jewish follower in the world or even in Israel. We know that it's probably just a portion of the population.
I mean, there was a book written by Rabbi Marvin Antelman, which I think is one of the most like insightful books about the fake Judaism. And that guy, like, look at Zev Zelenko. Or, I don't hate Zev Zelenko. He's a great man who did great things. Rabbi Marvin Antelman put together this amazing work to eliminate the opiates, showing how communists and Illuminati personnel infiltrated Judaism hundreds of years ago, and they wear it like a glove to further their own ends. Of course, they do the same thing with the Catholic Church. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a non-Muslim contingent within Islam that's kind of urging things in a certain direction. It's typical. The priest class as a powerful mechanism or control structure has been a concept since the very first religions. So, it's not too much of a surprise to see this sort of thing.
Exactly. The death cult, the guy who wrote this book, he's about the Sabbatean movement and then many other things. And the reformist movement, the Zionist movement. So where did Zionism come from? Well, all the people that were behind Zionism, or at least a good chunk of them, the kind of brain trust at the center of Zionism, were the Sabbateans. And the Sabbateans were people who thought, they're in order to bring about the great redemption of the world. And this is the outward agenda. I think Sabbateanism was itself just another front group. And that was being used by what I like to refer to them as the death cult. Because at the core of this, you got the same basic concept. Let's create as much war as possible. Well, let's use other cultures like a skin so that we can get our agenda across. And they've been successfully manipulating the Jewish culture for their own twisted purposes, seemingly for a long time. And that's not our words. This is a Jew who's a rabbi who wrote a book all about it. He brought the receipts. He's got all the kind of data you need. So, I really appreciate everybody sticking in and really being willing to question this dogma. And if there are any evangelicals out there that think we're all coming from left field here, I mean, I would honestly like to know what your counter argument is here, because I can't seem to find one. So, all right. Well, with that, I just want to play another little positive clip. We'll skip the Twitter vid section minus this clip here, which I just thought was quite nice, and as a little reminder about what, in my opinion, what I think we need to be doing here on this planet. So let's take a look. World Woman.
What was she thinking was gonna happen? They're just like splashing.
I know. I look like he's about to punch her out. Comes over. He's like, all right.
You got any money on you? I had to choose Mount Carroll. Oh, it happens to be a camera recording.
All right.
Sammy.
Yeah, all right. All right, so yeah, you're right. It could be staged, totally, but the sentiment is real. This is what we should be doing. We should be helping each other. We should be like rallying to fight, not each other, which is exactly what the globalists want. We should be rallying to fight the incestuous parasites that have run our world for far too long. So, all right. Well, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. I think we got all of our wonderful sponsors done. We did. Thank you so much for watching and giving us a thumbs up. We really appreciate it. Have a wonderful time with your friends and family during the holidays as much as you possibly can. And
we'll see you all next year.
That's right.
Yes, I don't think we're doing anything until January. Let me just pull up the calendar real quick to be fully sure.
While you're doing that, I will say I'm going to interview Tom Dr. Tom Cohen, who has been kind of waging a war, so to speak, against medical propaganda, specifically about viruses and a whole bunch of other things. So we're going to have an awesome conversation. I'm going to be recording it tomorrow, and then we will be uploading it, and it'll be in the normal interview slot. So technically there's one more Vigilant News show, Vigilant News interviews. Ryan, unfortunately, won't be here. He's heading up to go spend time with his family and be a good son, so to speak.
But
so
maybe we'll see you guys on New Year's.
Yeah, do we have a show before then?
This Christmas Day.
Okay.
So probably not.
Probably not. Oh yeah, Monday, I guess, is the New Year's Day.
And
so.
maybe we won't even make it for New Year's.
Probably not. I mean,
we might be gone for 2 weeks, guys.
I'll be in Arizona during that, so
I'll be up in Michigan.
We'll probably end up skipping it, but who knows? Maybe we can throw a segment together.
Yeah, we can pre-record something, and put it up there, or just hop on for like 45 minutes to an hour on New Year's Day. I wouldn't mind that.
Me either. Yeah, we're just gonna be sticking around anyway.
Sticking around.
So yeah, much love, guys. Seriously, really appreciate all the support. Thanks for the thumbs up. Thanks for your open-mindedness. And we will see you next year in person on Vigilant News. Much love and take care. Yeah, I got to really bring up the branding thing before I say to sign off, and then just watch us like idiots sit here and scroll through pages. So
Man,
anyway,
what?
Well, because I would say, you know, the whole sign off thing, and then I have to pull up the end video, and we're just kind of like, ooh. So anyway, all right. Now we're signing off. Much love.
We're still alive. We're still alive.
The Badlands, right at the Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.